this is something sort of axiomatic, is very well understood among the Orthodox. It was within the early church, but it's really been lost in Western Christianity. I'm sorry to say, again, I don't want to be critical of ordinary Catholics and Protestants who are really just doing the best that they can, most of them, but they don't know really even what the New Testament stands for. If you really read carefully with a different perspective, as you mentioned, the books of the New Testament, you will see again and again and again, St. Paul calling for the Christians that he's writing to, and other books too, but I'm thinking about especially the letters of Paul, where he's calling them for them to change, to be transformed, to become virtuous, to become holy. So on the one hand, he calls them saints because they've been baptized, they've joined the church, but they're not perfected yet. So the early church understood that salvation meant union with God. And in the Greek word is theosis, or sometimes called deification. Now, that can be misunderstood. It's certainly not like in a Hindu sense or some other kind of a sense that we become God, but we become God-like. And that's our understanding of salvation. Now, a lot of people will have difficulty with that because they've been sort of taught that heaven is like a place you get to, and then I don't know what you're supposed to do there, but it's like this beautiful place where there's a garden and flowers and your dog and trees and things like that. There's some kind of a place, or maybe you sit on clouds playing harps. I don't know, but heaven is thought of as a destination in Western Christianity. And of course all the jokes about St. Peter and the gates. Can I get in? You get in, and that everything's great. But the early church understood that that's why the Orthodox almost never talk about going to heaven. We don't use that terminology because we talk about salvation. When we die, what we want to do is to be with God. And in order to be with God, we have to become like God. And this is, again, as you mentioned, is very difficult for people to understand or even accept, because they would say, well, Jesus Christ paid for all my sins, right? If you're a Protestant, that's all you need. Jesus paid for my sins. I accepted that, and I get to go in. Then what? Okay? And what makes you think that you're going to be living with God? How can you live in the kingdom of heaven unless you become sanctified? It's not enough simply to accept what Christ did. That's just the beginning. The rest is to make us able to have an actual life with God. Okay, and that's what they don't understand, because if salvation is union with God and God is holy, we have to become holy too. And the way I try to explain this to